Okay, let's unpack this. Today on the deep dive, we are taking a really fascinating look at the Gospel of Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're not treating it as just a standard story. We're looking at it as a meticulously constructed argument.
Almost like a legal brief.
Exactly, a legal brief, and it's custom tailored for a very specific jury.
A first-century Jewish audience.
Mhm.
And that framing is, well, it's crucial. If you try to read Matthew merely as a biography, you miss so much of the rhetorical power.
You missed the point.
You do. He wasn't just recording events. He was interpreting them through the lens of the Hebrew Scriptures. His whole mission was proving, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Jesus was the Messiah.
And to do that, he used some very specific tools of interpretation, ones that were common in his world. This isn't just, pulling random prophecy quotes.
No, it's a very sophisticated method.
Yeah.
And to really get it, we need to define two key concepts. The first one is Midrash.
Midrash, okay.
Midrash is this methodology of interpretation where you re-examine old established texts, like the Torah or the prophets, to illuminate what's happening right now.
So it's not just quoting a passage. It's more like using that ancient text to say, look, what's happening now is what this was really pointing toward all along.
Precisely. Think of it like modern constitutional scholars rereading the Founding Fathers in light of, say, artificial intelligence. They're not changing the original document.
Right.
But they're drawing these deep connections between the old words and a new crisis. Matthew's doing that, but with the history of Israel and the life of Jesus.
Okay, and the second tool you mentioned was typology.
Typology, yeah. And it takes it a step further. It's this idea of seeing patterns or types in history that repeat and then find their ultimate fulfillment.
So patterns.
Yes. Matthew uses typology to show that Jesus isn't just a new prophet. He's the perfected template of the entire nation of Israel. He's reliving the big moments, the Exodus, the wilderness, and completing them perfectly.
That sets the stage for us perfectly. So our goal for this deep dive is to really understand the genius behind Matthew's source selections. Why these specific, sometimes pretty obscure passages.
And how they would have been so persuasive to his intended audience.
Exactly. So let's jump in with maybe the most surprising one. The Magi, the star.
Right. Matthew says this event fulfills the prophecy of a star coming out of Jacob.
Which, to a modern listener, just sounds like a beautiful image. But when you look at the source, it's not from Isaiah or the Psalms, is it?
No. It comes from the book of Numbers, chapter 24.
Yeah.
And the person who spoke that prophecy is Balaam.
Balaam, the Gentile seer. The one who was hired by a foreign king to curse Israel, but he could only bless them.
That is the entire narrative context Matthew is deploying. He's not just citing the line about the star. He's invoking the whole story of Balaam.
And that's strategic.
It's incredibly strategic for explaining the Magi.
How so? I mean, wouldn't a skeptic at the time say he's using some obscure text from a non-Jewish prophet?
Quite the opposite, actually. Balaam was famous in Jewish tradition. And the parallels to the Magi are just perfect.
Because there were also Gentiles from the East.
Exactly. Balaam himself was a seer from the East. He was a non-Israelite who recognized God's blessing on Israel even when he was paid to do the opposite.
I see it now. So Matthew is saying, just as this non-Israelite seer from the East recognized Israel's destiny way back when.
So too are these Magi, these non-Israelite wise men from the East, recognizing the arrival of Israel's king now.
It validates their visit immediately. The implication is, hey, even the Gentiles get it.
Yes,
Yeah.
It moves the discussion beyond just local concerns from day one.
That is a masterstroke. Okay, so if the Balaam reference opens the door to the Gentiles, Matthew then pivots right back to Jesus' national legitimacy, right?
He does. He quotes Hosea 11, verse 1. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son.
Now, this one always causes debate because in the original book of Hosea, it wasn't a future prediction at all.
No, not at all. It was historical. God was looking back, recalling the original Exodus.
So how does Matthew get away with using it as a prophecy?
This is where that idea of typology comes in full force.
Uh-huh.
He's arguing that just as the nation Israel had this foundational journey down to Egypt, called out crossing water, wilderness testing, so too must the true representative of Israel.
Jesus.
Jesus has to repeat that national journey, but do it perfectly. He's the new, refined Israel.
Okay, so lay out the parallels for us. How does he set this up?
It's really tightly structured. You have the descent. Israel goes down to Egypt to escape a famine.
And Jesus goes down to Egypt to escape King Herod.
An existential threat, yeah. Then you have the call out. Israel is called out of Egypt to the promised land.
And Jesus is called back from Egypt to Galilee.
And the pattern just keeps going right into the start of his ministry.
The baptism.
Exactly. Israel passed through the water, the Red Sea, and was then tested for 40 years in the wilderness. Jesus is baptized in the water of the Jordan, and then is immediately tested by the devil for 40 days in the wilderness.
He's reliving the entire saga.
But, and this is the crucial part, he's succeeding where the nation failed. He's getting it right.
So that elevates him. He's not just another teacher. He's the one who achieves what the whole nation was called to.
That is the core of Matthew's legal brief. The Messiah isn't a break from the past, he's the summation of it.
Let's shift to the political context, which must have been just electric for his audience. Matthew moves the story to Bethlehem, citing Micah.
Micah 5, verse 2.
And the geography is important, sure, but the prophecy's main point is about the kind of ruler who will emerge, right?
Yeah.
One who will shepherd his flock.
And Matthew uses this moment to draw a deliberate, and a truly painful contrast with the ruler actually on the throne at that time.
King Herod.
King Herod. And for a first-century audience, this was not subtle. This was a dangerous political statement.
What was it about Herod that made him so unacceptable beyond just being a tyrant?
Well, he was an Edomite, a historical enemy of Israel. He was installed by Rome, and even though he had the title King of the Jews, he was theologically illegitimate.
Whereas Jesus is presented as the descendant of David.
The legal descendant, fulfilling the Messianic criteria. So the contrast is between a foreign occupier and a true divinely appointed king.
And their methods of ruling couldn't be more different.
No. Herod ruled through paranoia and murder. The slaughter of the innocents is the clearest example of him just destroying any perceived threat.
And speaking of that, this is where we need to bring in that amazing detail about the timing. The traditional nativity scene has the Magi showing up almost immediately.
It does, but that conflates different accounts. Matthew gives us clues that it was a much longer timeline.
What are the clues?
Well, when the Magi arrive, Matthew says they enter a house. The Greek is oikion, not a stable. And they see a young child, paidion.
Not a newborn baby.
Exactly. The Greek for a newborn is brephos. This is a different word. And then, when Herod realizes he's been tricked, what does he do?
He orders the killing of all boys 2 years old and under.
He calculates his crime based on the extended timeline of their journey. He's assuming a 2-year window.
Wow. So the clash between Herod the tyrant and Jesus the shepherd wasn't an immediate thing. It was a slow burn.
A calculated, slow-burning confrontation. Matthew is arguing that real power isn't in Herod's murderous paranoia, but in this child who escapes to become the shepherd who protects his flock.
That makes the narrative so much more powerful. It's a theological critique of power politics. But let's zoom back out. We started with Gentiles, the Magi. Does Matthew ever suggest this king is only for Judea?
No, he signals the universal scope right from the beginning. The arrival of the Magi, who were likely highly educated priests from Persia, is what you could call the ultimate first fruit.
The first of many.
Yes, and he roots it all the way back to the absolute bedrock of Israel's entire existence.
The promise to Abraham.
Genesis 12, verse 3, the promise that all families of the earth shall be blessed through his line.
And the Magi are the first of those families of the earth to show up.
Exactly. They pay homage to the Jewish king, and that signals that Jesus' authority isn't just local. It's the culmination of that entire Abrahamic mandate.
It foreshadows the very end of the gospel.
It perfectly foreshadows the Great Commission. Go and make disciples of all nations. Matthew bookends his whole argument with this global vision.
So when you put it all together, the Midrash, the typology, the historical contrasts, what does it mean for us trying to grasp the power of this text?
It just reveals Matthew's incredible success in making the identity of Jesus historically and theologically inescapable for his audience. He wasn't asking them to throw away their scriptures.
He was telling them how to read them.
He was showing them that the Old Testament only made complete sense when you viewed it through the life of Jesus. He was turning skepticism into realization, showing that Jesus was the culmination of every pattern, every prophecy.
He wasn't manufacturing coincidences. He was arguing for necessary fulfillment.
It creates an airtight argument. It's a brilliant legal brief that argues Jesus isn't a departure from the story, but its inevitable final statement.
That is a phenomenal insight. And I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought based on this whole method. If Matthew's great skill was taking existing texts and patterns, Midrash and Typology, to build a convincing case for a present reality, what other major current or historical events might be waiting for someone to build a convincing legal brief using, existing national documents or cultural narratives or even historical cycles?
Look for the repeating patterns. Look for the foundational texts that are being reinterpreted all around us today.
Find the typology in your own reading. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll see you next time.